your support. And we're going to get to the news today. We got a great show for you. We got Dr. Michael Busler coming up at 6:33 this morning. National debt. You heard a little bit about the deficit. I mean, deficit's gone, kind of exploded. A lot of people used to talk about that. Matter of fact, in honor of the late Ross Perot, who actually was the first person to really start to hammer this idea of a deficit and a national debt, but didn't really explain what he would do to fix it. I think we do need to focus on our national debt and our deficit because it's a problem. It's a big deal. We do have people that think that it's not a big deal. Normalcy bias. Nothing bad or nothing drastic has ever happened. So, you tend to believe it never can. Anyway, we'll talk to Dr. Busler about that coming up at 6:33. Then at 7:30 this morning, Dr. Michael Packo will be back on the program. He's the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. We wanted to talk to Michael because of this court decision. A judge has issued an injunction against a law that would have made it harder for new political parties in Arkansas to get ballot access. So we will talk to Dr. Michael Packo coming up at 7:33 this morning. But before we go into that, I think we've got to spend a little bit more time on Jeffrey Epstein. And there's other news we're going to get to as well, so be patient with me, okay? But first of all, this stuff's been going on for a long, long, long time. Apparently, a lot of people have known that Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and a sicko. Matter of fact, there's all kinds of stories now breaking about some really sick stuff. I mean, at first it started with, the coverage of the border and human trafficking along the southern border. Who's that guy over in California? Is it Ed Buck? Is he now being sued or has he been charged? There's a big millionaire or billionaire guy over in California who's had not one but two guys that have been found dead at his house. And now he's being accused. There are reports, you can look this up. This guy's now being accused of sex trafficking. I believe the prosecutor refused to charge him, and I think so the family of the second dead guy is now suing him and accusing him of being a sex trafficker and accusing him of recording his encounters with these men and using them as blackmail or something like that. It sounds very familiar with what's being accused of Jeffrey Epstein. Yesterday on the program, we told you that Jeffrey Epstein and the sweetheart deal, that it's being described as a sweetheart deal, state charges, this was back in 2008, where he did serve jail time, but he didn't get the full treatment, if you will. And so everybody's criticizing the prosecutor at the time, who's now the labor secretary in Trump's cabinet, Alex Acosta. Matter of fact, here's some of what Alex Acosta said. We've got this pulled up via realclearpolitics.com/video. I tried to find it on YouTube, and I got to tell you, Google and YouTube are so front-loading their results. You can't ever find what you're looking for on YouTube anymore, because they're wanting you to consume the mainstream media outlets and their spin and their narrative. And I was just wanted to hear what he had to say. I just wanted to hear his comments without anybody telling me how to interpret those comments. Really frustrating, but it is a 52-minute speech, but a 52-minute long speech. I've got it queued up right here. Acosta on Epstein's sentence. He did a press conference yesterday. People are calling for his resignation. Listen to this.
The goal here was straightforward. Put Epstein behind bars, ensured he registered as a sexual offender, provide victims with the means to seek restitution, and protect the public by putting them on notice that a sexual predator was in their midst. This case, people have said, was unusual. And it was. It was complicated by the fact that this matter started as a state investigation. A state grand jury brought that single, completely unacceptable charge. A state official allowed Epstein to self-surrender. And so it is unusual because it's unusual for a federal prosecutor to intervene in a state matter such as this. We've seen cases recently, different set of facts, different. I don't want anyone to say I'm comparing these cases, but we've seen other cases where state prosecutors let folks go with no sentence and people shake their heads. In this case, the federal office intervened before the plea was taken and said, stop. Because if that plea is taken at the state level, you're going to face serious federal issues. Today, we know a lot more about how victims' trauma impacts their testimony. And this, too, is important.
Stop for a second.
Our juries are more...
Actually, I'm glad I listened to mainstream media clip after mainstream media clip. Most of the mainstream media are cutting out this part. I can tell you this right now, as going over this, I can tell you this right. Because, see, I watched this clip. I actually had a clip of this ready to go yesterday afternoon, when this was happening, and then I can't find the clip anymore. So, back up a little bit. Most people are cutting it off right when he says, and then we would have had federal issues. And they're not letting you hear what I think is probably the biggest hindsight when it comes to all this. And what I mean by that is, in 2008, nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein. Let's be honest. No one did. Now, that doesn't excuse giving him a quote, sweetheart deal, but was it a sweetheart deal considering the circumstances that nobody's ever even questioned really publicly in as broad as they're doing now until today? Because this guy works for Trump. I mean, that's the reason people are questioning Acosta now, is because he works for Trump and Epstein's been put in other charges. Yesterday, the report was, the Daily Beast article from a long ago, that the reason that there wasn't more charges was because, quote, he belonged to intelligence. This is what Acosta allegedly told the Daily Beast, that he belonged, meaning Epstein belonged to intelligence, meaning intelligence agency or an agency of some kind. Okay, but I want you to hear what he says about how we look at victims now versus how we used to. And all you got to do is think, Juanita Broderick. Blame the victim. You victim shame, right? And it's not until the last couple of years with the Me Too movement that now all of a sudden, no, hang on, wait a second. You don't do that. Now, the person that invented victim shaming was Hillary Clinton. Listen.
Facts. Different. I don't want anyone to say I'm comparing these cases, but we've seen other cases where state prosecutors let folks go with no sentence and people shake their heads. In this case, the federal office intervened before the plea was taken and said, stop. Because if that plea is taken at the state level, you're going to face serious federal issues. Today, we know a lot more about how victims' trauma impacts their testimony. And this, too, is important. Our juries are more accepting of contradictory statements, understanding that trauma-impacted memories work differently. And today, our judges do not allow victim shaming by defense attorneys. I have viewed the victim interviews. They're hard to watch because I know that my former colleagues, the men and women of my office, wanted to help them. I wanted to help them. That is why we intervened. And that's what the prosecutors of my office did. They insisted that he go to jail and put the world on notice that he was and is a sexual predator. Epstein's actions absolutely deserve a stiffer sentence. For years, there have been rumors of investigations in other jurisdictions. And he should be prosecuted in any state in which he committed a crime. If there are other states in which he committed crimes, if there are other states that can bring state charges, they should consider those as well. And so I absolutely welcome this New York prosecution. It is the absolutely right thing to do, and I'm happy to take questions.
All right, so that's Acosta, and he went into questions for another 40 minutes or so. Anyway, so to sum it up, this is not going to alleviate the heat on Alex Acosta. The media is already saying that they disagree. As some CBS lady I was listening to was saying, well, I was a prosecutor in Pennsylvania, and what he said about things being different in 2008 when it came to stuff like this versus now is completely ridiculous. Have you been alive the last couple of years? Things are completely different when it comes to making a sexual abuse allegation. Completely different than they were 11 years ago. Right? Harvey Weinstein, all these people. I mean, these were untouchable people. Why do you think Harvey Weinstein was allowed to get? Is it a coincidence that somebody like Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, all of these people have been doing this for years, and all of a sudden it all starts to unravel? It's because we clearly have some sort of different standard than we did 10 years ago, 9 years, when everybody knew this stuff was going on. It's not like Donald Trump in 2002 said, essentially outing him, by the way, outing him in 2002 to the New Yorker. Here he likes them young, though. He likes beautiful women like I do, but on the younger side. Can you imagine when Epstein read that, what he thought? He was probably furious. Who's this guy think he is? Telling the world about what I'm doing on my island or whatever. And by the way, Bill Clinton's story about never being on the island is completely bogus. I don't buy it for a second. Even the Associated Press is putting facts into their pieces now. Listen to this. It has a photo of which island is that? No, that's St. Thomas. Or is that Big St. James? Listen to this. You've got to listen to this. This is incredible to me. Okay? Ask about Jeffrey Epstein. Associated Press. Ask about Jeffrey Epstein on St. Thomas, and rooms go quiet. People leave. Those who share stories speak in barely audible tones. Sounds like it's a pretty terrified environment over in St. Thomas that they can see Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. The 66-year-old billionaire bought Little St. James Island off of this U.S. Caribbean territory more than 2 decades ago and began to transform it, clearing the native vegetation, ringing the property with towering palm trees, and planting 2 massive U.S. flags. Stop! You want to see Little St. James Island? Do you want to see it? Here's a 2014 drone flyover of Little St. James Island. And if you're not watching this program, you need to watch it, facebook.com/Conduit News if you want to see this video. This is insane. Okay, what is that structure over to the right there? You see that? He's got some sort of weird temple there. And this, by the way, is by, what is this, Technologies, something Technologies, Verified Perspective Technologies, LLC is who made this video. And you see what he's done here. There's like a helicopter pad. I guess most people you're gonna helicopter over. There is a United States flag. You see it there. Some normal looking structure. I suppose that's a normal looking structure. Okay. And then what is this thing? Somebody explain to me what this thing is. It is an Egyptian-style looking temple with, from what I can tell, are pagan images. There are other photos of this. What in the world makes you build something like this? And what are you doing on the island? And there are people that are going to look. What are these? What are these? The Nassau lines here? What are these things? Yeah, Nazca lines. What is this? What was he doing on this island aside from what he's being accused of? Anyway, and all this is now. I mean, people have known this for a while, by the way. Okay, and now it's all of a sudden coming out. Now everybody's got this outrage, and any excuse to. No, I mean, I think it's hilarious. The mainstream media is more focused on Acosta right now than Epstein, right? And everybody that could be ensnared by this. Back to the Associated Press. It was off-putting to residents of St. Thomas, a lush tropical island east of Puerto Rico with winding roads through mountains dotted with dainty Danish colonial-era homes. Then, when Epstein pleaded guilty in 2008 to soliciting and procuring a minor for prostitution, his need for privacy began to appear more sinister. Everybody called it Pedophile Island, said Kevin Goodrich, who is from St. Thomas and operates boat charters. Many people who worked for Epstein told the Associated Press this week that they had signed long non-disclosure agreements. Epstein built a stone mansion with cream-colored walls and a bright turquoise roof, surrounded by several other structures, including the maids' quarters and a massive square-shaped white building. You saw some of that. Epstein later bought neighboring Great St. James Island, which was once popular with locals and tourists. Quote, he wasn't well received, recalled Spencer Consalvo, a St. Thomas native who runs a tourist shop near a large marina. People think he's too rich to be properly policed. Federal authorities consider the smaller of the two islands to be Epstein's primary residence, that one that you just saw. By the way, it doesn't look like that now. That was in 2014. Apparently, in 2018, there was some, hurricane or something. Some people say a fire broke out as well. Let's see, what else do we have here? I know we got to go to break. At a nearby office that locals say Epstein owns is a seaside strip mall. A man in a T-shirt and sunglasses on his head opened the door a crack, shook his head vehemently when asked about Epstein, and locked the door. Anyway, very, very strange. A day after pleading not guilty in New York courtroom to charges of sexually abusing dozens of underage girls, there was scant movement on the Caribbean island. Hurricane shutters covered the windows. Locals hadn't seen any lights at night, and a lone worker drove a bright blue golf cart around the property. Pretty wild stuff. No wonder people are so, nervous. All these people that flew on that plane. And again, they even mentioned Bill Clinton here. Real quick, the Associated Press, listen to this. Let's see, the United States, a place where at least one alleged victim said in a court affidavit that she participated in an orgy as well as had sex with Epstein and other people. She said she saw former U.S. President Bill Clinton on the island, but that she never saw him having sex with anyone. A Clinton spokesman issued a statement saying he never visited there. We got to take a break. I think Bill Clinton's in trouble. Back in a minute.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. Folks, the Patriots of X746 are on a mission to educate you and all the citizens around you about your gun rights here in Arkansas. The idea of constitutional carry, permitless carry. You don't need a permission slip or a permit from the government to carry a weapon open or concealed in the state of Arkansas. There is much consensus on that, but there's also much confusion being pushed out by the propagandists in government, and that is exactly what this is. This is government propaganda, and it's probably we're probably going through this because of a revenue stream or a fear of revenue stream being cut off. You can go to Facebook.com and search for Patriots of X746. Listen to the rest of this segment, by the way. You're going to want to hear it. Welcome to the program from the Patriots. We've got Mr. Jim Ennis back on the program. Hey, Jim, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, I want to get your take on a meeting that happened.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
I've had people, I have had people, matter of fact, yesterday, somebody asking me, do you think any of this would be happening if it wasn't for Trump? I don't know specifically, but I will say this. I mean, and I guess Gene on Facebook, I mean, he raises the best point here. He says none of this would have been exposed if Hillary Clinton was president. Now, okay, so that makes me think, oh yeah, Trump is responsible in some way, because if you ask the other question, would Hillary Clinton ever allow the Southern District of New York or which is, I know is supposed to be autonomous, right? I mean, it's supposed to be, but you know, I guarantee you they're more free under Trump than they would have been under Clinton when they control everything. I mean, think Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, tarmac meeting. Remember all that? Yeah, no. If Hillary Clinton were president, you wouldn't hear of any of this. I don't think. Now, some of you out there may disagree with me, but I think those of you out there who the thought hasn't even crossed your mind, come on, you know that's right. I mean, you know, none of this stuff would be even anywhere close to mainstream. I'm surprised it's mainstream news right now. But you know what? The Acosta story, the Acosta focus is only going to last for so long. Okay, like at some point they're going to have to, and they already are. I mean, even the Associated Press is saying, "Hey, so we went to Little St. James Island," and I mean that's pretty incredible that it's in the news today.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. Between the Arkansas State Police, the head of the police there, Bill Bryant, the attorney for the Arkansas State Police, and legislators a couple of weeks ago. Now, were you at that meeting, or have you just seen the video that is thankfully archived on the Arkansas House of Representatives website?
I was not present at the meeting, but I have watched that video several times.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, isn't it? I mean, let's just get a general take, and then I want to play some of the audio from it.
Well, I mean,
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Here we go. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for starting the beginning of your day with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I've got these stories here that are quite fascinating to me. Nobody talks about the national debt anymore or the deficit. Here's the Wall Street Journal headline. Government bond market measure says recession risk growing. Yield on short-term treasuries has been higher than on long-term notes for more than 30 consecutive trading sessions. Also from thehill.com. Make America's deficits great again is the headline there. So there's some media attention being paid to, the first, the first term of President Trump and, spending the debt, that sort of thing. Also, we have from rollcall.com headline Pelosi debt limit vote possible before August recess, kind of raising the debt limit again. So nobody really talks about these issues anymore. I'd like to bring in an expert. You've heard him before. It's always great to talk to him. His name is Dr. Michael Busler. He's a professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey, a public policy analyst, economics expert. You've seen his column featured at Newsmax, LifeZed, and townhall.com. Dr. Busler, welcome back, sir.
Good morning, Paul. How are you? It's always my pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. It's likewise. So what do you make of these headlines?
Well, so here's the situation, and it's going to come to a head, I have a feeling, in September. So the federal government every year spends more money than they take in revenue. And they've done that in, I think, 56 of the last 60 years. So when that occurs, they have to sell bonds to finance the deficit, what they're short. There's no mechanism to ever pay back those bonds. In other words, we pay interest only on them. When they come due in 20 years, we don't have the money to pay them back, so we simply sell new bonds to pay back the old bonds. So it's called rolling over the public debt. So as a result, the public debt keeps growing. Congress has to set a limit to how much the federal government can borrow. The limit is roughly in the $22 trillion range, but we because of the continuing deficits we've had and we're having right now, we're up to the maximum. So Congress has to approve an increase in the debt ceiling. Now, in order to do that, conservatives are going to say, look, we'll go along with you, but you've got to put a plan in place to get these deficits down and at least come closer to balancing the budget. Well, there's going to be arguments with that too. Reducing government spending is very difficult. Why? about 70% of the government budget, or roughly a little over 60% rather, of the government budget, 2.7 trillion of the 4.4 trillion, a little over 60%, goes to things, entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Politically, we're going to have a difficult time trying to reduce any spending there, so that's pretty much locked in. Another 8% or so, 9% goes to cover interest on the public debt, which we obviously have to pay that also. So that's 70% of the budget that we can't touch. That leaves 30% left. Now, of that 30%, roughly, half of it is for defense spending and half of it is for domestic programs. The Republicans want to reduce the spending on domestic programs and increase defense spending because our military has been essentially decimated prior to President Trump. The Democrats, on the other hand, say we spend too much money on the military. They want to increase spending on social programs. And some of the Democrats want to vastly increase spending on social programs when they talk about things like Medicare for all, free college tuition, and that sort of thing. So here we're going to have a big problem, I think, in September. We have to raise the debt ceiling, and we have to come up with a deal to do that both the Democrats and Republicans can live with, and it's going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And I guess I'm just wondering, what is your view on the national debt, the deficit, in terms of, I mean, how long can we do this? Somebody was telling me, or I was reading a Facebook post about Ross Perot. You know, he passed away. And somebody said, I voted for Ross Perot because he was talking about the national debt. And he was letting everybody know. And he said back then it was $4 trillion, now it's $22 trillion. And so, you know, nothing bad has happened, really, since, you know, I mean, we have this massive national debt, but there's nothing bad that's really happened to us yet.
Yeah, so those who would go along with that argument would say, well, look, the public debt has gone up 5 times since Ross Perot. It's 5 times larger, more than 5 times larger. And look, interest rates are low. We don't seem to be having any problems. So what's the big deal? Just keep letting the debt go up. Here's the big deal. You measure debt relative to how much income you have. And we do that for individuals, too. You know, you have a certain level of income, you can take out a certain level of mortgage. You want debt that's proportionate to your income. Well, right now, back in when Ross Perot said that, the public debt was only about 50% of annual income. The public debt now is over 100% of annual income. So now the debt is getting to be large. The interest expense alone is eating up 8, 9, almost 10% of our annual spending. And interest rates are very low. Eventually, interest rates are going to go up. They have gone up somewhat. They're probably going to stabilize, maybe drop a little bit this year. But eventually, they're going to go up, and that will mean the interest expense on that debt will be even higher. Once you get to be more than 100% of income, it starts to make people nervous because you can run into some difficulties in being able to sell bonds, difficulties in being able to keep interest rates low, and difficulties because you're having to spend so much of the budget to pay just for interest on the debt. So we're pretty much close to a breaking point. There's only one other time in history where the debt was more than 100% of annual income, and that was right after World War II. Now, after World War II, of course, government spending went way down. The war was over, and we were able to get the public debt to be a much smaller portion of annual income. But we're at a point now, we're pretty much at a tipping point. We can't let the debt get much higher, and we're looking at relatively large deficits, it looks like, well into the future. So we're going to have to deal with this soon.
We're talking with Dr. Michael Busler. It's always great to have him on the program. Let me ask you about the Fed and this pick. Trump has nominated Judy Shelton, and she supports going back to the gold standard. Now, I think she's obviously a minority when it comes to these, these governors on the Fed. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think going back to the gold standard is a good idea. Letting it will end up pegging exchange rates between countries, and that's going to end up, I think, causing more problems than it solves. We're better off letting the exchange rates float and stay off of the gold standard. Now, about the Federal Reserve, though, and I wrote about this last year, I think the Federal Reserve was way too aggressive in raising interest rates. Since President Trump was elected, they've raised interest rates 8 times. Now, granted, they were pretty close to zero, and they're still relatively low. They're only in the 2.5% range. We're looking at the federal funds rate as a gauge. So they're still relatively low, but it's gone up so fast that it's interest expense for businesses that's twice what it was last year. Well, that tends to slow economic growth. The other thing the Federal Reserve is doing to get out of the last recession, they went through what they call this quantitative easing, which means they vastly increased the money supply. They're now starting to reduce the money supply, and they're doing it relatively quickly. That, too, will tend to slow economic growth. So I think what Chairman Powell said just yesterday was, we're going to take it easy with this. We realize, I think we got very aggressive. We're not raising interest rates at all this year, and most likely will reduce interest rates probably when they meet at the end of the month. I expect about 0.25%, maybe even 0.5% drop in interest rates. That'll send the economy back on a growth path that we were on prior to the Federal Reserve taking all this aggressive action. Remember, prior to Trump getting into office, the economy was growing at only about a 2% rate or less. Since President Trump has been in office, the economy has been growing at a 3% rate. Had the Federal Reserve not been so aggressive last year, we might be growing at a 3.5% or 4% rate. So I think the Fed's going to finally ease up on some of their aggressive posture.
We certainly know Donald Trump's political opponents are hoping for an economic collapse so that they can blame it on him. We definitely know that. We're talking with Dr. Michael Busler. I want to ask you again. So, ask you about the Fed, ask you about the gold standard. Last week, Trump talked about the U.S. dollar and maybe weakening the U.S. dollar. I've got a story from yesterday from CNBC. Trump has reportedly asked aides to find a way to weaken the U.S. dollar, basically play some of this currency manipulation game that other countries are doing. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I will say this about Trump. He comes up with ideas that you don't even ever hear talked about. You know, at least he's thinking outside the box. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly. You know, he's exactly right. He's not a politician. He's a business person, and business people look for solutions to problems and don't worry about things necessarily being politically correct or not. Which is why Trump is looking at doing so many things. The way that exchange rates are supposed to work, you just let the market determine what exchange rates are, and they work out well. China purposely keeps the value of their currency low, and they can manipulate in certain ways to be able to do that. That makes their goods much cheaper for everybody else to buy, and our goods more expensive for them to buy, which is part of the reason why we have such a large negative balance of trade with them. Had China not done that, the exchange rates would have worked themselves out, and the trade deficit we have with China would not be as great. So Trump's saying, well, if they do it, maybe we should do it too. There are not really too many ways we can do that that will give us a lot of benefit. So I don't think this will go anywhere, but you're right in that Trump is bringing up different ideas and different ways to do things, saying, look, we've got to combat some of these things, and we have to combat them any way that we can.
Last question on the bond issue. I did read this headline here, Wall Street Journal. Government bond market measure says recession risk growing. It's by Daniel Kruger. What are your thoughts on that?
So normally, long-term interest rates are higher than short-term interest rates. In other words, if you buy a 10-year bond, you should get a higher interest rate than if you buy a one-year bond. And the reason is simple. the longer you have the money tied up, the more risk you're taking, and the more risk you're taking, you should get a greater return, so higher interest rates. So long-term rates should be higher than short-term rates, and that's called looking at what they call the yield curve. Now we have an inverted yield curve, which means the short-term rates are actually higher than the long-term rates. About 2/3 of the time that has happened in the past, a recession follows. Now, not always, but about 2/3 of the time. So many of these economists and financial people are saying, well, look, the bond market's telling us a recession could be coming, and that's where they're reaching those conclusions. I don't see a recession coming. If short-term rates are higher than long-term rates, the simple solution is for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, so short-term rates will go down, and then we'll have a normal yield curve.
Wow.
And I think that's what's going to happen, and I don't see a recession anytime soon.
I mean, everything, it's unfortunate. It makes me uncomfortable, but, it seems like everything kind of hinges on what the Fed does. And, we have people, a part of the status quo, I would say, that like to claim that what the Fed does is above politics, but I don't believe that. I mean, I think any organization can be political, especially if you've got the power. Of course, you're going to be influenced by politics, right, Michael?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be. In theory, the Federal Reserve operates independently of the federal government. They don't have to do what the president says. They don't have to do what Congress says. Your point, in reality, the president appoints and reappoints the people on the chair and the other people on the Federal Reserve. So even though they want to operate independently, they still have to, in the back of their mind, say, look, if we get the president upset and we don't do what he wants and the country ends up going into a bad economic position, I'm not going to get reappointed as chairperson next year, at the end of 4 years, rather, and I'd like to do that. Also, the president uses a technique economists call jawboning. And jawboning means you just kind of keep talking like this and putting pressure, and maybe it will have some effect. Look, President Trump talked about lowering interest rates 6-8 months ago. The Federal Reserve was in the process of continuing to raise interest rates. So now the Federal Reserve has changed. Well, is it due to President Trump putting a little pressure on them? Or is it more due to some of the weak economic numbers we've seen in the second quarter? I would suspect it's a little bit of both.
Dr. Michael Busler, we always appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Paul. My pleasure.
All righty. Have a great day. Folks, we're going to take a break. And, again, you can find Dr. Busler's stuff. Look for it at townhall.com, Newsmax, LifeZet. And, again, he's a professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey, public policy analyst, economics expert, as you can tell. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab, Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Yes, it was frustrating, and it was obviously frustrating for a lot of the legislators that were there. John Payton, Marcus Richmond, there were several there that were frustrated with Colonel Bryant and the General Counsel. They repeatedly asked for the state police to provide the statute in which somebody could still be arrested for carrying concealed without a permit, and repeatedly the Colonel Bryant and the General Counsel both could not give that statute. It was just a lot of just a lot of side talk and everything, and could not come up with that statute. Because
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Very much looking forward to the next segment, our next long segment when we come back from break. I got to tell you, if you saw the front page of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette this morning, you're going to be a little frustrated. Lottery's take for fiscal 2019, a record $516 million. $98 million raised for students. Chief credits the jackpots. 516, wow, that's a travesty, isn't it? It's the scholarship lottery. It's supposed to take care of your kids. Now, we're going to get into the top of the hour whether or not that should even be the government's responsibility, but hey, people voted for it. This is Frederick Bastiat's The Law definition of legal plunder. It's what it is. Specifically, their quotes in that book about education. Why do I get the feeling that giant lottery company is essentially fleecing lower income people in this state under the guise of helping people pay for college, and is making off with, a record of $400 million from us? Excuse me. It just seems wrong to me. Am I the only one? We'll talk about that more coming up at 7:05. Then at 7:33, Dr. Michael Packo back on the program. He's an economist, but he's also the chair of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. And we'll get him on, talk about this injunction that a judge, thanks to the Libertarian Party of Arkansas, they've made ballot access for newer parties easier. And as I told him, we recorded this interview. As I told him, I said, I think, I vote for Republicans most of the time, but I definitely don't agree with trying to stifle debate. It doesn't seem like, or stifle choices. It doesn't seem like a very American thing to do. It really doesn't. So I'm glad the law has been stopped, this law that Republicans put in place that would have made it harder for libertarians to get ballot access. When they almost got ballot access, automatically. They almost met that threshold the last election. So we'll talk to him about that. Also, your meme of the day. So we forgot the meme of the day yesterday. So we have the meme, but we also have another really good meme. Don't we, Joe? It was really good. The one you just showed me. Oh, yeah, that one. Really funny stuff. Also, Joe and I were talking a little bit about women's soccer. You know, there's some controversy right now with women's soccer. And, you know, you've got the big star. I don't even know her name, but she doesn't want to go to the White House. And, and then, you know, you had one soccer player. She picked the flag up when, you know. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing. But the fact that the U.S. soccer team won, they won the World Cup, and then immediately it's turned into a political issue about how they might have won the World Cup, but they're actually oppressed and everything else. You know, so we won the World Cup. Feel sorry for us. That's essentially what it is. Gender pay gap. We won the World Cup, but you need to feel sorry for us. I mean, it's really frustrating from my standpoint. I mean, I don't care about soccer, much less women's soccer. Yeah. Here's the thing. This is my, you know what? I think the women's soccer people have asked for this. All right. 2 years ago in 2017, the women's soccer, the women's soccer team, they were attempting to, you know, have a warm-up game for a game they were playing against Russia the next week or something. And so they decided to play a Dallas 14-year-old boy team. It's actually under 15. It's everybody wears under 15 because I talked to a guy who actually has a son yesterday who plays on these teams, and when it's got the word 15 in the title, but it actually means under 15. So, you know, it should be nothing, right? But I mean, the fact is, this FC Dallas under 15 boys squad beat the U.S. women's national team in 2017 by a score of 5-2. Now, people say the media says it was informal. It was an informal match, and they weren't. And you know, me and Joe were kind of talking back and forth. Well, were they really trying and that sort of thing and everything else? Listen, I don't know, but I know there are people on the left. I mean, there's another story out there. Yeah, this one. While U.S. women's soccer team demands equal pay, a loss to a under 15 boys team and total revenue revealed. So now people are starting to say, okay, well, if you want equal pay, maybe we should look at the market. And turns out when you look at the market, they're actually overpaid. Okay, and then people say, well, why? Why are they? Well, and then you have this little thing, which is like, wow, I mean, you know, honestly, by the way, as far as equal pay goes with women's soccer, if the Democrats had their way, they'd replace all the women with men in skirts because there is no such thing as gender. Something to think about.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, and they're leaving us and the citizens no choice but to speculate on why they will not state the obvious. And as law enforcement officers, and you know, when it comes to criminal code, it's got to be clear. And they're saying because it's not clear, it means that that constitutional carry is not a thing. Let me cue this up. Let's go. This is Richard Womack. This is kind of toward the end of the question. Here's State Representative Richard Womack talking to the Arkansas State Police Attorney at the Arkansas Legislative Council a couple of weeks ago. Watch this.
Okay.
To be demonstration of unlawful intent. Senator Ballinger was correct. And
I want to just stop you because, we're kind of going back over the same ground here, and that was not my intent. I think the answer was no. Like, you don't have clear language there, which, going back to where Representative Ballinger went, when it comes to a criminal charge, you have to have that. So if you don't have that, and I'm assuming you don't, right? Like you've had three opportunities now to state this is the language that's as plain as day that makes this illegal. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm really looking for a yes or no answer because, you know, you stated your opinion and how you interpret it, and of course everybody in this room can have the same thing. So I'm just going to move to my follow-up, really, Colonel Bryant, because I don't think you're going to give us the answer that we all know, is you don't have that language. Colonel Bryant, why do you refuse to acknowledge the fact that you don't have that language in code anywhere?
Again, I believe it's the interpretation that I depend on our lawyers at the state police of that statute. And we've hashed it over, but I think it's the totality of the circumstances.
You're depending on the lawyers. No, it's your opinion, and the lawyers are
okay.
Are justifying your
it just
opinion.
Amazes me that that's good enough for you to not have law that you're asking your officers to enforce against the people of the state of Arkansas. That really blows my mind.
Representative Womack, we don't want your mind blown, but we would like to represent Senator Stubblefield at this point.
Wait, let's stop. We'll get to Stubblefield here in a minute. That is incredible to me. And by the way, the chair of that committee from the Senate side is Democrat Keith Ingram.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hour number 2, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building the Liberty Machine. Thank you so much for being with us today. A few Donald Trump tweets, President tweeting a few minutes ago. Robert Johnson from BET, quote, I give the president a lot of credit for moving the economy in a positive direction that's benefiting a large number of Americans. I think the tax cuts clearly help stimulate the economy. Overall, if you look at the United States economy and you look at the number of people who are no longer looking for jobs, but who are now seeing the opportunity for job growth, you've got to give the president an A+ for that, end quote. President Trump tweeting, thank you, Robert, one of our great business leaders. Again, that is Robert Johnson, I guess, from BET. That's Black Entertainment Television. Also, criticizing the media, President Trump, 22 minutes ago, the fake news media loves the narrative that I didn't use many banks because the banks didn't like me. No, I didn't use many banks because I don't need their money. Old-fashioned, isn't it? If I did, would have been very easy for me to get. And remember, a bank that I did use years ago, the now badly written about and maligned Deutsche Bank, was then one of the largest and most prestigious banks in the world. They wanted my business, and so did many others. Did I see another tweet last night that I thought was just amazing? I thought the president was trolling everyone, but I can't seem to find it right now. It was like a photo of a survey, but anyway. Maybe it wasn't a survey. Maybe that was from the Trump campaign, and it made the left melt down. Okay, so let's get to headline Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Listen to this. The lottery, the Arkansas State Scholarship Lottery. For scholars, you know. We want to send our kids to college, so we need a government program to do it. Took in $516 million from you and gave $98 million for students. Or at least it says it raised $98 million for students. Does that mean that that's $98 million that went out? I don't know. $516.2 million in fiscal year 2019. That is higher than its record the year before of $500 million. The lottery director, Bishop Woolsey, quote, we really challenged the staff and they rose to the occasion, and the results were fantastic. Really challenged the staff and they rose to the occasion. The state is selling an addictive product. The state, gambling is addictive. Lottery scratch-offs are addictive to people. That's just the way it is, period. The state of Arkansas is sponsoring a very well-researched and documented that it is an addictive product. Just look at the chemicals that are released in the brain. It just is what it is. Arkansas Scholarship Lottery started selling scratch-off tickets September 28, 2009. It helps finance the academic challenge scholarships. Let's see here. The scholarships are financed with $20 million a year from state revenue, $20 million reserve fund that covers temporary cash shortfalls. Let's see, keeps going here. Keep going. You see, we got some quotes. Hutchinson, let's go to the governor. Governor said on Wednesday in a written statement that, quote, the reform measures we put in place beginning in 2015 have made a difference both in terms of controlling expense and in revenue. In terms of a change in distribution criteria, I would agree it is time to evaluate the impact of the changes on students and determine whether any adjustments are necessary. I mean, yeah, I think I would agree with that. I mean, when I see that this is supposed to be to help the kids, and it's really just helping the lottery companies, if we're honest, you know? I mean, I'm just, it's something to think about, you know? $516 million, and they give away $98 million. I don't know. That just doesn't seem right to me. What do you guys think? Number 870-275-9799. You know, to me, I think this is just, I think the government has absolutely no place in a state-sponsored lottery. And why in the world we listened to Democrat Bill Halter when he was advocating that, years ago, I honestly don't know. I mean, I know other states have it, but I mean, if you think about this, I mean, is it any wonder? By the way, they're going to try to get recreational marijuana on the ballot now. That's now something that's going to happen. We'll see. That's a discussion for another time. But we have these ballot initiatives. We decide to do a scholarship lottery, and it gets billed to you as, oh, this is going to help students. But I mean, if we're honest, it really helps the lottery companies. I mean, that's what you do this for. The people and anybody that criticizes the lottery at this point, anybody that criticizes gambling at this point, could potentially, go, make somebody's wallet lighter. And if you're going to do that, you're going to be criticized. Also, I mean, is there any money? We need to have. Will you write down David Colbert? We need to get David Colbert back on here. He's a lottery expert. We need to get him on here ASAP. We need him to discuss this with us. Because I want to know. I mean, he's just a wealth of information on this. When it comes to, I mean, how much of this money is going to fund addiction services like gambling therapy or whatever? Now, listen, I'm a small government guy. I'd say the program doesn't even exist at all. You see how the program perpetuates other programs? It's how government grows, folks. So there's a book written called The Law by Frederick Bastiat. It's fantastic. And anytime I look at a program like this, and really this goes for a lot of things, the idea of what government's supposed to do for us, when you look at opinions from long ago, we have far outpaced the concept. And what we do is we promote something that Frederick Bastiat talked a lot about, which is this phrase called legal plunder. I'm going to read for you a few quotes. You can think about the lottery. You can think about other welfare programs as well. But listen to this. Now, legal plunder can be committed in an infinite number of ways. Thus, we have an infinite number of plans for organizing it. Tariffs, protection, benefits, subsidies, encouragements, progressive taxation, public schools, guaranteed jobs, guaranteed profits. Ooh, Blue Cross Blue Shield. How about that guaranteed 20% profit? Minimum wages, a right to relief, a right to the tools of labor, free credit, and so on, and so on. As long as it is admitted that the law may be diverted from its true purpose, that it may violate property instead of protecting it, then everyone will want to participate in making the law, either to protect himself against plunder or to use it for plunder. You say, there are persons who lack education, and you turn to the law. But the law is not, in itself, a torch of learning which shines its light abroad. The law extends over a society where some persons have knowledge and others do not, where some citizens need to learn and others can teach. In this matter of education, the law has only two alternatives. It can permit this transaction of teaching and learning to operate freely and without the use of force, or it can force human wills in this matter by taking from some of them enough to pay the teachers who are appointed by the government to instruct others without charge. But in the second case, the law commits legal plunder by violating liberty and property. Ooh, man. Can you feel the sting? I mean, that's an indictment of a lot of our way of life. I mean, it's an indictment of public schools. I mean, let's just be honest. Interesting. More on this concept of legal plunder. Sometimes the law defends plunder, and also in the context of now criminal Jeremy Hutchinson. Sometimes the law defends plunder and participates in it. Thus, the beneficiaries are spared the shame and danger that their acts would otherwise involve. But how is this legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply, see if the law takes from some persons what belongs to them and gives it to the other persons to whom it doesn't belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime. Then abolish that law without delay. No legal plunder. This is the principle of justice, peace, order, stability, harmony, and logic. Again, we're reading from the book, The Law of Frederick Bastiat. Now, I was talking to somebody about Jeremy Hutchinson specifically. And in the context, I mean, all of these people, we had that article the day after, we feel so sorry or we're so sad or whatever. And it's like, hang on a second. This guy stole hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, from the government, from people who truly needed it. I mean, what else could have been done with all that money that was done to pay off Jeremy Hutchinson? I think people really forget here. What actually was going on in Little Rock is it's more than just being a, quote, criminal. It is so much worse than that when you think about how their actions have affected those who honestly need the help, of a safety net program or something like that. Back to the idealistic Frederick Bastiat. The mission of the law is not to oppress persons and plunder them of their property, even though the law may be acting in a philanthropic spirit. Its mission is to protect property. Legal plunder has two roots. One of them, as I have said before, is in human greed. The other is in false philanthropy. You know anything about false philanthropy? Preferred Family Health Care. That organization is a false philanthropic organization. They were taking taxpayer money under the guise of philanthropy, because that's what any free government program is, under the guise of philanthropy, and they're using that taxpayer money to bribe politicians to get more taxpayer dollars under the false premise of philanthropic goals. Quote, the person who profits from this law will complain bitterly, defending his acquired rights. He will claim that the state is obligated to protect and encourage his particular industry, that this procedure enriches the state because the protected industry is thus able to spend more and to pay higher wages to the poor working man. Do not listen to this sophistry by vested interests. The acceptance of these arguments will build legal plunder into a whole system. In fact, this has already occurred. The present-day delusion is an attempt to enrich everyone at the expense of everyone else, to make plunder universal under the pretense of organizing it. We need to get organized here, meaning we need to solidify and institutionalize legal plunder. Let's do to a citizen what we could not do individually, we will do collectively, and we will claim we have the legal authority to do it. Think corruption in Little Rock, folks. Quote, in fact, if law were restricted to protecting all persons, all liberties, and all properties, if law were nothing more than the organized combination of the individual's rights to self-defense, if law were the obstacle, the check, the punisher of all oppression and plunder, it is likely that we citizens would then argue much about the extent of the franchise. Skipping down. I do not think that legal plunder, such as theft or swindling, which the penal code defines, anticipates, and punishes, can be called socialism. It is not this kind of plunder that systematically threatens the foundations of society. Anyway, the war against this kind of plunder has not waited for the command of these gentlemen. The war against illegal plunder has been fought since the beginning of the world, long before the Revolution of February 1848, long before the appearance even of socialism itself. France has provided police, judges, prisons, dungeons, and scaffolds for the purpose of fighting illegal plunder. The law itself conducts this war, and it is my wish and opinion that the law should always maintain this attitude toward plunder. And see, that's not true. I mean, our sentiments are completely, we have lawmakers that have never even read these quotes that are making judgment. They never even thought about these ideas, these concepts. That's scary. That is scary. Here's another one. We'll leave you on this, and we got to go to break. By the way, we got Michael Pacco coming up at 7:33. Legal plunder may be exercised in an infinite multitude of ways. Hence come an infinite multitude of plans for organizations. I said this earlier: tariffs, protection, prerequisites, gratuities, encouragements, progressive taxation, free public education, the right to work, right to profit, right to wages, right to assistance, right to instruments of labor, gratuity of credit. And it is all these plans taken as a whole with what they have in common, legal plunder, that takes the name of socialism. We're going to take a break. Check it out, Frederick Bastier, The Law. You guys would, everybody should read at least portions of it. Back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. He was playing defense for the state police the entire time. So Jim Ennis, let me get you to respond to that.
Well, number one, it's not the position of the state police to interpret law to begin with. They have to go by what is presented to them by the legislature, and the statute clearly states that unless a person has unlawful intent, the mere possession of a firearm is not a crime. And that's even been decided upon. Everybody's been in the government has been crying for the last 6 years, saying that we need precedent. We need a court case. Well, we have a court case. Mm-hmm.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the show. Let's see here. What else we have? We got Michael Packo coming up. We have your meme of the day. We got 2 memes of the day today because we forgot the one yesterday. You want to do one of them right now? All right, let's do the makeup meme of the day now. Let's do it. Here it is. You guys ready? It's a picture of Fry from Futurama, courtesy of Republicans Pride on Instagram, and it's got this. It just says, "If there's no such thing as gender, how is there a gender pay gap?" That's pretty good because the left says there's no such thing as gender, so how's there a gender pay gap? Hey, let me tell you something else. Feminists, man, you guys are doing yourself a disservice. Leave this up. You didn't realize the New York Times, Joe, did you know this? The New York Times piece about how air conditioning is oppressive. Did you know about this? I have it right here. That's what I thought when I read the article. It was actually sent to me by my sisters who were laughing at it. Feminists who are being persecuted by air conditioning. They say that when the workplace was more male-dominated in the 60s, that average building temperatures were essentially agreed upon, like there was some sort of summit of men. But really what they're saying is because men like it cooler in rooms, and women in the summertime wear dresses and then freeze to death, that the air condition is a symbol of oppression for the patriarchy. No, I'm not making this up. Feminists, in an effort to fight the patriarchy, i.e. air conditioning, are actually confirming female stereotypes that women nag, are crazy, and totally ridiculous in their complaints. And not to mention the female stereotype of, I'm cold. And I think it's absolutely. And by the way, again, with the LGBT RSTLNE, would you like to buy a Val community? How am I supposed to even know that there is a male patriarchy oppressing females when there is no such thing as gender? It's just a societal construct. Not to mention, I mean, I can take this a step further. What about the LGBT, like the original LGBT? First of all, you're going to have the B's and the T's start to team up against, or the T's start to team up against the L's and the G's and the T. But you know why? Because they've been around and more accepted longer, and the trans haven't. So there's now such thing as gay privilege or homosexual privilege. Homosexual privilege, because you've been around more longer and more accepting, and now, shock these men who are in women's clothes threatening cashiers. I'm a man. I'm sorry. It's ma'am. It's ma'am. You better not call me sir again. It's ma'am. And if you don't like it, I'll take you outside and I'll show you what it's like. I'm sorry, Joe. Joe's the peanut gallery over here and cracks me up. All right, we're going to take a break. That's my rant for the day, I guess. We'll have another meme, the actual meme of the day, coming up at 7:50. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment with Dr. Michael Packo.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Of October 17th, 2018, Taft v. Arkansas, we have a case where the Arkansas State Court of Appeals said that it is not that merely possessing a weapon is not a crime in the state of Arkansas.
And you know, I wasn't at the whole meeting, but
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, hey, welcome back to the program. Got a special treat on the line. We have Dr. Michael Packo is back with us. He's the chair of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. Dr. Packo, good to have you on again, sir.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here.
Yes, sir. It's always great to have you. Now, I wanted to have you on to talk about this latest development here. We have a story, let's see, this is from the Arkansas Times, July 6th. Libertarian Party halts new law aimed at restricting ballot access. What can you tell us about this, and what can you tell us about this court decision?
Oh, well, it was basically a 4th of July gift for us from the federal court. We had challenged the law that was recently passed during the legislature to increase the petition requirement from 10,000 signatures to effectively about 27,000 signatures. And we had a hearing in court on June 4th and had about a month to wait for the decision, but it turned out in our favor. The court entered an injunction that requires the Secretary of State to accept 10,000 signatures as it was before the law was changed. We've already submitted 18,000 raw signatures. We anticipate that enough of those will be valid so that you'll see the Libertarian Party on the ballot in Arkansas next year in the elections.
What can you tell us about, the motivations for this? Because, one of the quotes I think in the Gazette had to do with this was a Republican deal. Can you talk a little bit about how the law that was just stopped, the genesis of it?
Well, I'm not sure what the motivation is of the individuals who were behind it. It was pretty much a partisan vote in both houses in our state legislature, a little bit more so in the Senate than the House. But, it seemed pretty clear to us that it was designed to make it more difficult, if not impossible, for third parties like the Libertarian Party to be on the ballot. And it felt kind of personal to us as well because we're the only third party that's managed to make the ballot over the past two cycles. So any sort of argument about how the ballot is overcrowded sounds pretty much directed at us. But there's certainly, they didn't make the case that the ballot is overcrowded with three parties on the ballot. So that doesn't really fly as a sufficient motivation.
No, I think you're right. Do you think, though, there's any, to me, you guys, the Libertarian candidate for governor, Mark West, last time around, and he almost got to the 3% mark, which would have meant that you guys wouldn't have had to gather signatures. You would have automatically been on the ballot the next time. So, to me, I kind of saw it, and feel free to disagree, as a way to say, well, you guys almost became a nuisance, and so now we're going to raise the threshold and make it even harder.
Well, there's probably some of that involved, too. I mean, certainly if we had not been improving and becoming more successful, I suppose it wouldn't be worthwhile to even try to keep us off the ballot. But as you pointed out, Mark West came closer than anyone has ever come in Arkansas history to establishing a third party in Arkansas by getting that 3%. So perhaps that put a little bit of urgency into the situation, as some folks saw it. But I guess the important thing is that we will survive to try again.
So the lawsuit was back in March. Libertarians sued back in March, saying that the laws unconstitutionally increase the number of valid signatures that new political parties must collect on petitions from 10,000 to 3% of the total vote cast for governor in the last general election. That would require the party to obtain 26,000 instead of 10,000. Let's just be honest, Libertarian Party of Arkansas, like any third party, is not going to have the kind of resources that these other parties have.
No, that's right. That's right. And nor do we have resources or big money backing us, as in the case of ballot initiatives or things like that, which also require a lot of signatures. It's very expensive and time-consuming of volunteer resources to mount a petition campaign, and this essentially just raised the price of getting your party onto the ballot. And I think that was part of the state's case in the hearing that we had on June 4th. But again, that didn't prevail as a valid view from the court. That the judge recognized that the Libertarian Party has limited resources, and we've been doing the best we could. Yeah. We were collecting signatures at the same time that we were pursuing the lawsuit. We needed to show the court that we were serious. This wasn't just a frivolous lawsuit trying to overturn a law that was irrelevant. We really were stymied by it, and we're working, trying to fulfill the requirements of the law, and just not having the resources to do so.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. We're talking with Dr. Michael Packo. He is the chair of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. He's reacting to this injunction. I tend to vote for Republicans. I do, and I realize that right now, we've got Republican supermajorities here in Arkansas, and sometimes I think because of the Democrat Party is sinking so fast that we've got some bigger government Republicans in because that's where they find their new home. And so maybe we don't have as a limited government, a live and let live, the policies that I think a lot of people, issue by issue in Arkansas, would agree with. And so to me, I see this as, the Republicans maybe are worried that, of course, if they aren't conservative enough, they're going to face a primary challenge. But then you never know. With the Libertarian Party gaining steam, then you might have a more conservative candidate, and I use the word conservative in terms like limited government guy in the general. And so I kind of see this as a way to get rid of what they consider to be, having to run a competitive general election. For years, Michael, the Democrat Party, when they were in control, you had the primaries, and that was essentially your general election. Whoever won the primary in a Democrat primary was going to go on to beat the Republican. And, as the Libertarian Party grows, the Republicans may not have that advantage.
Well, yeah, that was one of the points that we made in court, is that there certainly isn't a lack of, or there is certainly a lack of competition, rather, in the political process right now, that in the 2018 election, it was 54% of the state House members were unopposed in the general election. That would have been 59% had it not been for a handful of libertarians who were challenging otherwise uncontested incumbents. So, there's that's really the only thing that it would gain the Republican Party, for that matter, or Democrats, for that matter, is less competition when it comes to Election Day. And we already have more than half of our state legislature face no competition in their election bids. Many of them face no primary either. So they're basically in office due to the fact that they've paid an exorbitant filing fee to their respective parties. So we're just trying to give the voters another option.
Yeah. Well, I know the libertarian community was thrilled with the injunction. So the law cannot be enforced. So you guys are going to go and get your signatures like you normally do, get the lower threshold. But what happens from now? I mean, obviously the case could technically still go the other way, still could go against you guys. Is that right?
Well, yes. This isn't the conclusion of the case. There's a trial date scheduled for next May, where I guess everything will be settled. If not before then, I'm not sure exactly how that'll work. That's kind of the lawyer game. That's not what I'm trying to figure out. But for now, the Secretary of State is enjoined to accept our signatures. We've already turned them in. As I understand it, the Secretary of State's office is presently counting those signatures, and that we will be certified as a new political party, assuming that 10,000 of those are valid. Then, of course, that's contingent on not being reversed in court subsequent to this time. But as it stands right now, we declared a new political party, and the judge would not have issued this ruling if it weren't for a very strong assertion, and this was made explicit in her decision, that we were likely to prevail in the final decision. And that's one of the very strict requirements of entering an injunction like this.
Yeah. So it certainly looks good for you guys, and just in the in the transparency of saying, most of the time I'm going to vote for the Republican most of the time, but as somebody that believes in competitive political ideas, I think ballot access has got to be something that we promote. It's got to be something that people can achieve in a transparent way, and not a way where you use the government, you use the law to construct what is essentially choice architecture, and that I think that can be detrimental to the concept of the consent of the governed and the people being able to express themselves at the voter. But I think those are American concepts, and I think they need to be protected. And so I support the libertarians and you guys getting ballot access.
Well, we appreciate that, and really at this point, that's all we're asking for, is to give us a chance to put our candidates before the voters. Next year, when we have our candidates all in line and ready to go, we'll be asking for their vote, for your votes for them. But at this point, it's like just give us a chance to be part of the process, so we can take part and have some influence, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Michael Packo, it's always great to talk to you, sir. I appreciate you spending time with us this morning, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope to talk to you again soon.
All righty.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. I didn't hear anybody reference the Attorney General opinion in response to the late Senator Collins' question. What's the penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a permit? I mean, at the very beginning of her opinion, she admits that there is no such, And exactly. So I would have loved for somebody to be like, so you disagree with the Attorney General? And this idea of like, well, this is what my lawyer's friend, this is what the lawyers tell me. No, you have your opinion. You're the boss. You have the agenda. And the lawyers come around as essentially a spokesperson and try to do their, they do their mental gymnastics to try to represent your point of view. That's what a lawyer does. Honestly, I mean, she just is, is kind of talking around the obvious, which we have constitutional carry in Arkansas, and the Arkansas State Police.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Interesting. President Trump tweeting that Democrats had to quickly take down a tweet called "Kids in Cages, Inhumane Treatment at the Border," because the horrible picture used was from the Obama administration, the years during when Obama was president. Very embarrassing, President of the United States says. Anyway. What do we have here? We have Woods. Woods on Twitter. Woods on Facebook writing. Hang on. Well, we had another comment. Controlling the choices is the game of those in control. Building on what we were talking about with Dr. Michael Packo, the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas, essentially saying, and I mentioned this, it's called choice architecture, okay, where if you can make sure and control the choices, then you can kind of control the degree of change depending on who gets into power, the Republican or the Democrat. And this is something that happens. And, I think it would happen with any party because, once you get into power and your group gets into power, your human instincts take over. And you want to solidify that power. You want to make sure it never goes anywhere. And so that's what is, it was attempted. It was an attempted move to restrict ballot access. The judge says no, and of course, it's not over and done with yet. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Telephone number 870-275-9799 if you would like to contribute to the program today. That's 870-275-9799. This is a fascinating story over in Oklahoma. Joe, throw this up there. Stitt, Governor Kevin Stitt, has issued a new executive order. This was last week to extend restrictions on contract lobbyists. This is fascinating to me, and this is something that needs to be done here in Arkansas. This from Oklahoma News 4. Governor Kevin Stitt announced that he is continuing his push against state agencies hiring external lobbyists. On Friday, Governor Stitt announced a new executive order that puts in place a permanent restriction on state agencies entering into contracts with external lobbyists. This is what he said, quote, "When taking office, I uncovered that several state agencies were collectively spending more than $1 million annually on contract lobbyists to advocate for their own special interests to the legislature and the executive branch. The agency's practice of hiring contract lobbyists skirts transparency laws and empowers agencies to ignore voters' mandates. I quickly issued an executive order limiting agencies from entering into new contracts or extending current ones through the end of 2019 fiscal year. My new executive order makes this restriction permanent during my administration. Oklahomans are united around a vision to make our great state top 10, and I will continue to pursue common sense reforms such as Executive Order 2019-29 to ensure state agencies are all in alignment. Stop. Now, in Arkansas, let me contrast this with Arkansas because Oklahoma clearly has the same problem. And I don't know specifically if Arkansas has, contract lobbyists, their state agencies are using contract. I don't know specifically if any of that's going on. But what I will say is the biggest lobby in the city of Little Rock, in the state of Arkansas, is government itself. It's the government itself. That's the biggest lobby. There's tons of special interests down there. The medical society, the medical society, unfortunately, is full of a lot of protectionist people that don't have the consumer in mind. They don't have freedom in mind. The medical society, huge lobby, and they're just, with few exceptions, generally bad. But government agencies lobbying for themselves, lobbying for new power, lobbying for new money. Government agencies are the largest lobby at the Marble Palace. Government agencies essentially lobbying state legislators to continue their growth, their employment, their missions, so that they never, ever reach a goal. The agency can never then shrink, never can go away. It's a way to perpetuate government. And that's what's also going on in Oklahoma, or the governor wouldn't have done this. Now, are there ways around this? You say, okay, fine. A state agency can't hire contract lobbyists. Well, here in Arkansas, what Arkansas does is we create lobbyist positions inside the agencies. We call them liaisons. We call them government legislator liaisons. Former state representative and chair of the Public Health Committee, Kelly Link, he resigned to take a newly created government lobbyist position for DHS. And they created it just for him, where he is a lobbyist for DHS to the state legislature. But it's an official, so really there needs to be a law preventing that from happening. These guys don't need liaisons or lobbyists. They don't need people advocating for the bureaucracy. The lawmakers, that's why we have lawmakers. We vote them. We vote them in, and then these agencies, if you don't like the way the lawmakers' point of view is, these agencies, in order to protect themselves, use your taxpayer money to hire somebody to try to convince them otherwise or work against their goals and what they told the people they would try to do when they got elected. It's really a sick system. It's like a lesser, I tell you what it is. You know what it is? It's like a lesser evil. If the maximum evil was your taxpayer dollars being used to kill unborn babies, or your taxpayer dollars being used to kill unborn babies, and then those babies get sold, which happens. We know that it happens. It is what it is. So we have the videos of them negotiating over baby body parts over a nice glass of Chardonnay over lunch. Or was it Chianti? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, what goes on when your tax dollars are used against your own interests and beliefs I mean, the ultimate example of that would be abortion, but the lesser example would be your tax dollars being used to thwart the guy that you voted for to go down there and actually represent you. Something to think about. Our meme of the day. This is our actual meme of the day. Oh, hey, Paul. Hi, Paul. Hey, Paul. Hey, Paul. Sorry. I had a picture-in-picture thing going on. What is this, the 90s? Oh. This is courtesy of @followthewhiterabbit_official on Instagram. It's a picture of an ice cooler, you know, like one of those ice coolers that have the ice that you buy at the store. So, you know, it's like a big chest of ice. And it says ice. ICE on the side. And then it's got a picture of Ocasio-Cortez in her white jumpsuit crying at the border. So,
Photoshop's the best, isn't it?
yeah, Photoshop is a pretty useful tool. It really is. We'll post this meme of the day at Conduit News and the other one. There is no gender. If there is no gender, then how is there a gender pay gap? We'll post those two up at Conduit News Twitter at Conduit News, as well as our Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News. Today on the website, be looking out. We've already got this YouTube video up. It was uploaded yesterday, and it was really well received. It's the interview that I did with Dan Borum from the Patriots of X746 yesterday, where he did an excellent job. Matter of fact, the last two Patriot segments from last week and this week have been really good at countering the government propaganda that's coming out of the Arkansas State Police when it comes to your right to protect yourself and carry a weapon. Protect yourself, your property, your family, etc. So we'll be putting that up on the front page of conduitnews.com as well momentarily, because inside the YouTube video, we also play the committee meeting from a couple of weeks ago, the 18th of June, I believe, where the lawmakers were adamantly disagreeing openly with the head of the state police and their attorney over what they believe the law says versus what many lawmakers are saying the law says when it comes to carrying a weapon. And it's encouraging also to see some of the other members there who maybe not be as outspoken, but they are listening. And if you're listening, there's absolutely, no way, if you're a Republican lawmaker watching that, maybe you don't know, it's clear that the state police are hiding, obfuscating. They don't want to be honest with what the law actually says. And again, I raised the question yesterday, is it because of a racial motivation? And I think that has to be asked at this point. And you would think people on the left would want to ask that question too, but that would be, you'd have to be consistent with principle on that. And I think they hate guns more than they hate the idea of somebody being racially oppressed because people are scared of their right to carry weapons. Just an observation. Arkansas, go to conduitnews.com for more. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday.